Hello, we are back. We are so back. The sun is shining. I'm reading books. The birds are chirping. Everything's green. Everything's great. Let's get into it. So, there's been a lot of things I've learned this week. But first of all, I'm going to start with this book, The Courage to Be Disliked. I thought this would be another one of those self-help books that just talked at generic shit, but it's quite literally not. It is a conversation between a youth and a philosopher. The youth is very insecure, very skeptic, very in his feelings, just doesn't like himself in general, and thinks that everyone hates him. And the philosopher is like, bro, you just need to calm down. You have everything in control and in your hands. So let's talk about it. So basically, the first concept that I want to talk about is the teleology versus ateology. So ateology is the study of causation. So basically, Freud said this, and a lot of philosophers have said this, that and psychologists, that some the past conditioning you've had, the past experiences that you've had, they shape the person that you are, right? But Adler and a lot of other philosophers, like the one in this book, says that you need to rely on the study of teleology, which is basically that the purpose of the causation doesn't matter, the purpose of the situation does. So basically they're saying that everything you have basically done, it can amount to nothing other than the meaning you give it. So for example, if something really traumatic happened to me, but I think that it was for the good and it didn't really hurt me, but I grew stronger because of it, and that is what will happen to me. So basically it is saying that you cannot really blame your past for your future. You have the control to change everything you can right now. So they're not putting the blame on you, but they're saying that you need to take accountability for where you are in life. That is the first point I want to talk about. The second point is that you can change right now. Like, there's no hindrance in between you changing into a different person, right? You can quite literally customize your character, right? So for example, I was feeling really stuck the past few days. I was like, nothing is really happening, so I was like, who is there to blame for that? It is my life. I am in control of it. And I really have wanted to get a nose piercing for like a few days, a few months actually. So I just went ahead and got it. And this is not really about like money things. This is not about anything related to, you need resources for it. You can just go and have a different perspective on life and hence change your reality. That is one of the things that is talked about in this book. The third thing I want to talk about is all problems are interpersonal problems. So basically, what the philosopher in the book says is that if you were alone in this world, you would not have any problem, right? You would have food, you would have shelter, you would have everything you needed. But if there was another person in this world with you, for example, Adam and Eve, right? There are always two people, and Eve told Adam to eat the apple. That is an interpersonal problem. Similarly, if you were a lone person in this world, your only problem, if you felt human connection before, would be you'd feel lonely, and that is again an interpersonal problem. So every problem you face, even if it is related to your career, even if it is related to your own self, it is kind of an interpersonal problem. Why did I stop, making videos for months? Because I just didn't feel like it. And why did I not feel like it? Because um, mostly I thought it was because of my own self, but it wasn't. It was because I was having problems with people, and that led me to be a little demotivated in my own life, and that led me to, in chance, not making videos which bring me so much joy. So, you need to go deeper into asking questions. You need to get to the root of the problem, right? So, we basically manufacture a state of fear and anxiety in order to achieve our goal. And I'm not talking about the goal of changing, but I'm talking about the goal of, for example, being unhappy. So, for example, if I think I am an unhappy person and I want to change that, but I can't change that, it's probably because I am constantly in a state of trying to reaffirm that goal. Why would I do that? Because I am in a comfort zone in that goal. For example, I have always known being sad. It is not that bad, right? And we are constantly stuck in that zone of not that bad. So, for example, if I think about myself, sometimes I feel like I am a little bit like I could be more social, right? And I really want to try to be that, but sometimes it's so easy to just stay where you are, just be an observer, and it's not that bad, is it? It's quite fun actually, but I want to change it, but I can't because it's not that bad. And we think our goal is to change, but our goal is to actually remain in the same place. And if you think your goal is to change, you should look at your actions. Are you actually acting to change into that goal, or are you just pretending to? This is something that I quite often struggle with. And also, we are not determined by our experiences, but the meaning we give them is determining. I found that quote to be really helpful, that you can choose to look at your past as something that is mendable, because mostly your perception of the past is quite um, unreliable. It is filled with feelings, it is filled with emotions, it is filled with everything that is not the objective. It is quite subjective to you. And that is why I think when we discuss things with our friends, when we discuss events that we went through with people, for example, shared trauma, right? So a lot of people in school had shared trauma through some teachers, through some events, through some gossip, or I don't know, fights. When people discuss different point of views, it's mostly different for everyone, right? So I think that is pretty important. Okay, another thing that I wanted to elaborate on is feeling of inferiority complex, superiority complex. I think these are things that need to be talked about more, and they are quite literally very much related. So basically, inferiority complex stems from feeling inferior to other people, right? So there's a healthy type of inferiority complex and there's an unhealthy type of inferiority complex. The healthy type of inferiority complex basically says that you compare yourself to a version of yourself that you want to become. That is pretty healthy. You think that, oh, would a version of me 10 years down the line make the same choice that I'm doing right now? Would I regret it, or would I be okay with it? Another example of this is, before making a choice, you ask, would little Bani like this choice, and would elder Bani like this choice? So like you basically have perspectives but inside your head. So instead of another gaze, so for example male gaze or female gaze, or a judgmental gaze, you have a gaze of yourself from the past and from the future. That is one example. The unhealthy type of inferiority complex is the one that stems from comparing yourself to other people. This I have seen in probably most of the people, and sometimes even in me. When I was I think 13 and 14, I used to be very like comparative, like, oh, like I need to know what everyone is doing so I can do better than them, which is not a healthy mindset to have, because not everyone will have the same goals and desires as you, and not everyone will have the same personality, the same strengths and the same weaknesses as you, and not everyone will have the same family situation as you. So you need to understand that everyone is different, and this is why people have mimetic desires. This is why people copy others' goals. This is why people copy other people. You need to become your own person. You are your own person. You just need to find that. And for that, you need to spend some time alone. You need to spend some time to yourself. You need to ask deeper questions, and you need to think, what do I actually want? And whatever path you are on, right? So if you're pursuing a degree right now, if you're pursuing a career right now, you need to ask yourself, this is what I want, or is this not what I want? And if it is not what I want, what do I actually want? And if that is also not clear, it is okay for me to continue down this path. Maybe I'll figure it out that way. But you need to acknowledge things. You need to acknowledge who you are, what you are becoming, what you will become. That is what I wanted to say. And the correct feeling of inferiority will help you grow. So for me, when I think about 10 years down the line, will I regret something I have done? The answer is no, because I have made good choices, and I have been following this advice for quite a long time. The last thing I want to talk about, I'm going to quote this from the book itself. one shifts one's responsibility for the situation one is currently in to someone else. One is running away from one's life's tasks by saying that everything is the fault of other people or the fault of one's environment. It's exactly the same as with the story I mentioned earlier. One lies to oneself and one lies to the people around one too. This is called a life lie. So basically, I think that many people, including me, we kind of go about life living it in our heads and living it quite passively. You need to take control of your own life, right? And to take control of that, you need to understand that most situations you are in, you only have yourself to blame. And further than that, you need to remove what is this life lie. You need to remove the fact that you, most problems you have are not caused by other people. Yes, they might be interpersonal relationship problems, but that doesn't mean that you have no control over them. And to not be dismissive about those problems, but to face them head on. And I know it sounds very cheesy and cringy to say that, but it's quite literally that simple. Do not live in a lie. Think about your actions before your words and your mind. Right, I'm just gonna conclude this video by saying I'm just gonna keep posting more of these videos because I really enjoy making them and I hope you enjoy watching them. And they're gonna be more regular now because I am in a great mood right now, actually. So, motivation should not determine your actions. However, it is quite a trap. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.